Pedro Porro is going to explode into one of the best fullbacks, not just in the Premier League, but in Europe next season in Thomas Frank's new look Tottenham Hotspur side. I'm convinced of this after the first 2 games of pre-season, but is that not what pre-season's for? To get a little bit excited, maybe even a little bit overexcited, and Pedro Porro is currently the one that I'm looking at and finding most interesting in his new role in pre-season so far. I was going to do a breakdown of the 2 pre-season games today. I've just sat down and watched them back to back. The Wickham game this morning and then the Luton game this afternoon. To be completely honest with you, I couldn't be bothered. That Luton game especially was just an absolute drag. I think we had 2 shots in the entire game, only 1 on target, 1 chance maybe. There wasn't much that I thought was really that interesting to talk about. I think there was some of the tactical ideas, obviously, that we spoke about last week after the Reading game, and Wickham was kind of the same. I know we scored 2 goals in that game and it ended 2-2, but again, I didn't find a lot of it that interesting. I find the camera angle really hard to sort of analyse anything that tactical on Spurs play, with that Wickham game obviously being at the Spurs training ground. So yeah, I've decided to just pick a thing that I want to talk about and a video that I was going to make anyway. So we fast forwarded and we're making that video now today. If you are new around here, like I said plenty of times in every video, so much Spurs pre-season content is going to be coming. We are about to go on tour to obviously South Korea and Hong Kong, I believe. So going to be analysing all of the games out there, Newcastle, Arsenal, then we've got obviously the Super Cup after that, and then into the Premier League season. So if you are new around here, please like the video, please subscribe as well, that would be greatly appreciated. And yeah, let's get into the video. Now, it's not only a new trim that Pedro Porro has got this pre-season, it is also a new role, a new way that he is utilised in the build-up for Tottenham Hotspur, and it's something that's really, really exciting me, as much as the hair. Honestly, I do love the hair as well. It makes him a lot more spottable on the pitch, and you know, when players go blonde, that can often lead to upturns in form, and maybe that's what we're seeing here as well. God knows if he's keeping it into the new season, but I kind of hope he does. I kind of like it. But this new role for him is, I think, going to sort of, I mean, it's a beautiful thing with Porro because he's got so many different elements to his game and so many different weapons that you can utilise in build-up and in the attacking phase of the game to sort of, you can play him as an overlapping fullback, you can play him as a fullback who underlaps, you can play him as a fullback who sits a little bit deeper, you can play him as a really high and wide fullback, and you'll find areas of his game that suit each of those. But I think this is my favourite way to use him in build-up that I've seen so far. You know, with Ange Postecoglou, I always felt like he was maybe quite wide in build-up and not as involved as he could potentially have been at times, although obviously he still found a way to use that quality in build-up and find those quality passes, whether that was punching those through the lines into the attackers or into James Maddison or Kulusevski when they were picking up those little pockets in between the lines, or those clipped over the top balls to Brennan Johnson that he loved playing last year. But I think a lot of it came from out wide, and the shift that you're seeing, I think, in pre-season is that Pedro Porro is sitting quite a lot deeper in build-up and almost being utilised as one of the 3 in almost a 3-back system when setting up. You've got Destiny Udogie, who's really getting quite high and wide and overlapping his fullback, and when he's getting the ball, he's really driving up that touchline, and Pedro Porro is kind of coming around from this area into this area, dropping a little bit deeper here next to Romero, Van de Ven or Vuskovic and Danzo, whoever he's playing next to, and receiving the ball almost like a little bit of a quarterback. How we've seen Trent receive the ball for Liverpool and for Real Madrid at times throughout his career, and you've seen him be so devastating from that position. I believe that that's something that we could really be seeing with Pedro Porro, is in that almost quarterback role, and I think it suits this side and this style of build-up so well because of the profiles that we have in that front 3, because of the profiles that we have in midfield as well, and because of Porro's strengths. Because when he's picking up the ball in these areas, he's immediately getting his head up, and he's looking for those players making those out to him runs, those runs sort of in this area. Dominic Solanke is always running the channels, as we know. He's obviously always got that option too of just playing a simple pass into one of those midfield pivots who are dropping deeper to get the ball, or even punching a ball through to a James Maddison, a Mohamed Kudus, whoever, Donley, Mikey Moore, whoever's been playing in that role in pre-season too. And it sort of just really opens up the pitch for him and allows him to use that full range of passing that I think is genuinely one of our biggest weapons in build-up. And I think he is going to have such a huge role to play in that build-up next season, even if it's switching the ball over to Destiny Udogie as well. Like I said, it just really opens up the pitch for him. Instead of him receiving the ball on this touchline and maybe his back to play a little bit, a man pressing him in here, it really limits his options, or means that he has to become a lot more creative with his passing, which I think is something that he is able to do, absolutely. But just dropping in here, I also think that it makes him a lot more set in defensive areas. You know, if Porro's pushing up really, really high and getting quite wide, I think that's why he's been left so exposed defensively, or that side of the pitch was left so exposed defensively at times last season, because again, Porro doesn't excel in his physicality. He's a player who's quite limited physically. He's obviously quite small. He's not the quickest. He's relatively quick, but he's not the quickest in terms of getting back on transitions. And I think him starting a little bit deeper and sort of playing in this role, I think will also help his defensive side of the games and those struggles that he's had in that side of the game since he joined Tottenham, really at different times. I do kind of think he's a little bit overhated defensively too. I think, you know, the system really exposed him to a lot of 1v1, 2v1 defending last year, which I don't think he'll be exposed to as often or as regularly this year. Obviously, you're always going to have that at times as a fullback, but like I said, I think that'll be less regular. A clip that really highlights this from the game against Wickham earlier today obviously drew to all. Some of the passes that Pedro Porro was playing were just utterly ridiculous, and like I said, this kind of area here with Vuskovic and Romero sat next to him, like you can see, almost a 3-back with Ben Davies or would-be Destiny Udogie pushing a lot higher on that side, and obviously you saw a lot of the play and a lot of the build-up go down that side too with Udogie's ball carrying. It's kind of like Thomas Frank, I think, has looked at it and gone, where does Porro excel? His passing range with the ball at his feet. Where does Udogie excel? His ball carrying with the ball at his feet. So we're going to get Udogie a little bit higher and wider, overlapping, and Porro dropping into those pockets a little bit deeper and receiving the ball and being able to open up his body and have all of the options in front of him. I think that's what Thomas Frank has done. And this ball here, the straight ball through the middle to Wilson Odobert to set up that chance that Odobert kind of snatched at a little bit. It was a tough chance for Odobert, to be fair, but kind of snatched it a little bit. Odobert, who also had a brilliant game, by the way, one of the brighter sparks. And that just shows you that. I mean, I also thought something that was really interesting too about this was the runs that a lot of the players were making. Pat Matasar was making that run from this area of the pitch over the top to the right-hand side. He could have been a ball, potentially. Richarlison had that space opened up by Odobert making that out to him run through the middle of the pitch. He could have been the ball as well. Pedro Porro is picking his head up, and he's got so many options. If you think when Dominic Solanke's in that team too, Dominic Solanke is somebody who loves running the channels. He's always making these runs sort of from the centre of the pitch here, out into the wide channel on the right, or out into the wide channel on the left, or through the middle, and that is something that Pedro Porro and him, I remember there was a goal, was it against Everton? It was a Richarlison goal when Pedro Porro picked up the ball in this area and he played that sort of straight ball over the top, and Richarlison got onto it. It was a first time finish on his left foot under the goalkeeper, and it was a lovely, lovely assist from Porro. And that kind of thing I can sort of envision either Richarlison, if he's in the team, I don't know if Richarlison will even be in the squad next season, but you'd imagine he would be as a backup striker if he can stay fit, or Dominic Solanke doing that. And I feel like those kind of balls from Matisse Tell, this is the thing, like with the profiles we got, Matisse Tell, who sort of, if he's making that run from sort of out to in into this area here, or if you've got Dominic Solanke, like I said, again, running into those channels, you've got Mohamed Kudus dropping a little bit deeper, creating the space. You've got so many options there for Pedro Porro to pick his head up and find. And it's gonna be such a lovely option to have him build up next year. And look, it might be frustrating at times because he might overhit, he might underhit a ball. You know, it is a more risky ball. It is a more risky way of building up. But there'll be plenty of times when he plays a more simple pass into Bentancur, or a more simple pass through the lines into James Maddison. And also there's going to be plenty of times when we build up on that left-hand side when you've got Mickey van der Ven. Sort of he can run into this channel here, and you've got Destiny Udogie who's going to be making these overlapping runs here, and the ball will be progressed through more ball carrying on that left-hand side. It's funny because I think Spurs is sort of the way that we are going to attack next season, we're quite suited profile-wise. Van der Ven and Udogie on the same side are more ball carriers. Romero and Pedro Porro are more line breakers, are more, excel more with the ball at their feet in terms of that passing range. And I think that's going to be quite a nice blend and quite a nice mix for Thomas Frank to experiment with and to find those different options, those different ways of building up next season. So that's something I'm just super, super excited for. And like I said, Pedro Porro in this new role, I think it will really highlight his strengths and maybe negate some of his weaknesses defensively as well. If he's more sort of protected in this position, if he's more... basically, I think if you can get Pedro Porro to have as much time on the ball as humanly possible, the better for Tottenham. I really, really do believe that as well. And I think also the ball progresses up the pitch with Destiny Udogie. You will find Pedro Porro naturally drifting up the pitch into probably these slightly more central areas. Could he do those overlapping runs as well? Yeah, of course, especially if you've got Mohamed Kudus playing sort of drifting inside the pitch or dropping a little bit deeper in here to collect the ball, because obviously we know how good his ball carrying can be. Pedro Porro can absolutely do that, where he gets on his bike on the overlap as well. And I think you'll see it mixed up. You know, if teams sort of figure us out, I don't think we're just going to have one way of playing. It's not always going to be Pedro Porro in this area and a doggy on the overlap. There's obviously going to be times when those players are unavailable too, and we'll be able to mix it up. And I think that's what's so brilliant about Pedro Porro's skill set. It's like, okay, what do you want me to do? Well, I can do that. Pedro Porro can do that. But this new role that I think we're seeing him in is something that's super exciting. I also think in terms of backup fullbacks, this could be a role that really suits Archie Gray as well. Not necessarily in terms of he's got the same passing range as Porro, but Archie Gray is also somebody who excels with the ball at their feet. Those line-breaking passes that we all know Archie Gray has in him, and defensively as well, setting up in this sort of more, I don't know how to describe it, like this more 3-back with a doggy pushing on or whoever pushing on, Archie Gray dropping in to make it sort of a 3 in defence. I think that would really suit his game as well, and I think he'll excel as well with more time in the ball, punching those balls through the lines too. Not necessarily has the long passing range of a Pedro Porro or the ball striking of a Pedro Porro, but somebody who can benefit in different ways. And I don't think if we're not going to target another fullback this summer, which I still think we should, a left-sided defender would be ideal for me. I think, you know, Archie Gray is that Porro cover and Jed Spence is that doggy cover as two profiles who are similar and suit. Jed Spence, again, more of a ball carrier like Destiny Doggy. Archie Gray, more of a ball player like Pedro Porro. I think that could be a really exciting option. And I just think Pedro Porro is going to have a fantastic season next season if he can stay injury free, because the build up, the profiles that we got in our squad, it's so suited to having him as a massive weapon in attack, and that's something I'm super excited about. I think it's going to highlight his strengths like I mentioned earlier and sort of dampen down those weaknesses, because obviously every player's got weaknesses and Pedro Porro has weaknesses, as we saw at times last season. But if you can get him on the ball with as much time and space as possible, allow him to dictate a little bit in build up, I think that you're going to see the best version of Pedro Porro that we've seen so far at Tottenham Hotspur next season. And yeah, so I rambled on a little bit in that video. I hope that all makes sense. I hope I was able to get my thoughts out properly in the way that I'm envisioning it. But yeah, let me know if you're excited about Pedro Porro heading into next season. Let me know how much you enjoyed those preseason games this afternoon on a scale of 1 to 10. And if anyone says anything above a 3 or 4, I'll probably look at you like you're mental. But there you go. Pedro Porro, one of the most exciting fullbacks in Europe next season. You heard it here first. And I hope he keeps the blonde hair as well. So yeah, if you are new here, like I said earlier, like and subscribe. Plenty more content coming. I'm excited for the tour. I'm excited to play some slightly higher level opposition. And yeah, nice one.